Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and wow, what a day it's been. I'm not even all the way through the hearing. I put it off until, I could double speed the Democrats and everything because it's just so boring. Nothing is really going on except for a blatant disrespect for any of the rules of the House right now by the Democrats. And so I wanted to put this together. Now, I'm not going to edit this, really. I hope I'm not going to. So I'm going to say I'm sorry in advance for any fumblings and everything that I'm probably going to make. It's just that I got to get this done so I can get it rendered, and then I can upload it tonight when I'm at the library. So our library closes really early, so I've got to get this done. Anyway, this was a video that I want you to watch that was a clip from what POTUS said today after the IG report came out.
Plus protracted years of nonsense. Thank you, sir.
Well, they fabricated evidence and they lied to the courts and they did all sorts of things to have it go their way. And this was something that we can never allow to happen again. The report actually, and especially when you look into it, and the details of the report are far worse than anything I would have even imagined. What they were doing and what they would have done if I didn't make a certain move that was a very important move, because it would have been even worse if that's possible. And they might have been able to succeed. This was an overthrow of government. This was an attempted overthrow, and a lot of people were in on it, and they got caught. They got caught red-handed. And I look forward to the Durham report, which is coming out in the not-too-distant future. It's got his own information, which is this information plus. And it's an incredible thing that happened, and we're lucky we caught him. I think I'm going to put this down as one of our great achievements, because what we found and what we saw, never, ever should this happen again in our country. All right, with that, today we gathered to discuss the urgent national...
Okay, so that's what he had to say, and notice the plus. Yeah, very important for those of us who follow the 17th letter of the alphabet. I also want you to know that the 17th letter of the alphabet said on December 2nd, posted a picture of a watch, and the time was 1:29. Well, that's exactly when the IG report was posted to the Inspector General DOJ site. Or Twitter feed. That's what it was. So let's go on. Here we have, first of all, Christopher Wray responded to this IG report. Now you have to remember that these people have had that report for a while and have gone through it. So it's not like they just got dumped on with this 400 and some page document. And by the way, I was a little disappointed on that it was only 400 and some pages. That is not the size of a phone book, okay? Well, it could be a small phone book, but it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. Oh, well. So anyway, this is his response, and he has to say, well, remember, I put all the links down below for you. So this was a letter he wrote to Horowitz, and he says, Dear Inspector General Horowitz, thank you for the opportunity to respond to the Office of the Inspector General's report titled Review of 4 FISA Applications and Other Aspects of the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane Investigation. Yeah, that's the big long title of it. The FBI appreciates the OIG's crucial independent oversight role and the thoroughness and professionalism your office brought to this work. The report's findings and recommendations represent constructive criticism that will make us strong as an organization. We also appreciate the report's recognition that the FBI cooperated fully with this review and provided broad and timely access to all information requested by the OIG, including highly classified and sensitive material involving national security. The report concludes that the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation and related investigations of certain individuals were opened in 2016 for an authorized purpose. Don't worry, we're going to get to that, okay? But this is what Wray says, remember? And with adequate factual predication. Again, this is Wray saying this. The report also details instances in which certain FBI personnel at times during the 2016-2017 period reviewed by the OIG did not comply with existing policies, neglected to exercise appropriate diligence, or otherwise failed to meet the standard of conduct that the FBI expects of its employees, and that our country expects of the FBI. We are vested with significant authorities, and it is our obligation to as public servants to ensure that these authorities are exercised with objectivity and integrity. Anything less falls short of the FBI's duty to the American people. Accordingly, the FBI accepts the report's findings and embraces the need for thoughtful, meaningful remedial action. I have ordered more than 40 corrective steps to address the report's recommendations because our credibility and brand are central to fulfilling our mission. We are also making improvements beyond those recommended by the OIG, and where certain individuals have been referred by the OIG for review of their conduct, the FBI will not hesitate to make appropriate disciplinary action if warranted at the completion of the required procedures for disciplinary review. Below is a summary of the actions we are taking, which we describe in more detail in the attachment to this letter. And I'm not sure, I don't really have the attachment to the letter. I didn't see a link for it, but first, we are modifying our processes under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act for both for initial applications and renewals to enhance accuracy and completeness. Blah. The FBI relies on FISA every day in national security investigations to prevent terrorists and foreign intelligence services from harming the United States. We are making concrete changes. I can't read today. It's been a long day. I've been watching the hearing and my brain's a little fried. So that's why I'm making all these mistakes, right? In national security investigations to prevent terrorists and foreign intelligence services from harming the United States. We are making concrete changes to ensure that our FISA protocols, verifications, layers of review, record-keeping requirements, and audits are more stringent and less susceptible to mistake or inaccuracy. These new processes... I really can't talk. Processes will also ensure that the FISA court and the Department of Justice, DOJ, are apprised of all information in the FBI's holdings relevant to a determination of probable cause. Second, we undertook an extensive review of investigative activity based out of FBI headquarters. The FBI is a field-based law enforcement organization, and the vast majority of our investigations should continue to be worked by our field offices. Moving forward, in the very rare instance when FBI headquarters runs a sensitive investigation, we are requiring prior approval by the FBI Deputy Director and consultation with the Assistant Director in charge or Special Agent in charge of the affected field offices. Third, we are making significant changes to how the FBI manages its confidential human source, and you're going to see this in the report at CHS. It's mentioned several times. Many FBI investigations rely on human sources, but the investigative value derived from CHS provided information rests in part on the CHS's credibility, which Steele had none, which demands rigorous assessment of the source. The modifications we are making to how the FBI collects documents and shares information about CHSs will strengthen our assessment of the information these sources are providing. Fourth, sorry about that. I'm establishing new protocols for the FBI's participation in Office of the Director of National Intelligence led counterintelligence transition briefings, i.e. strategy intelligence briefings provided to presidential nominees. The FBI's role in these briefings should be for national security purposes and not for investigative purposes. Yeah, right. Continued participation by the FBI in these transition briefings is critical to ensuring continuity in the event of a change in administrations. The new FBI protocols about transition briefings will complement procedures already implemented by the FBI earlier this year to govern the separate category of defensive briefings. The FBI gives defensive briefings which are based on specific threat information in a wide variety of contexts and for a myriad federal, state, and other public and private individuals and entities. The procedures we recently established for defensive briefings regarding malign foreign influence efforts have brought a new rigor and discipline to whether and how such briefings should proceed. Fifth, I am mandating a specialized semi-annual training requirement for FBI personnel at all levels who handle FISA and CHS matters. This training will be experience-based and will cover specific lessons learned from this report along with other new and revised material. Earlier in my tenure as director, I reinstated an annual ethics program, reinstated an annual ethics training program for all FBI employees because I learned the training had been discontinued in prior years, which that's interesting to note. While that training was not introduced in response to this report, all current FBI employees involved in the 2016-2017 events reviewed by the OIG have since completed this additional training in ethics and professional responsibility. And remember, that's like the current employees. That doesn't include the people that, have already left. Finally, we will review the performance and conduct of certain FBI employees who are referenced in the report's recommendations, including managers, supervisors, and senior officials at the time. The FBI will take appropriate disciplinary action where warranted. Notably, many of the employees described in the report are no longer employed at the FBI. So, we already know that, right? I want to emphasize that the FBI's participation... Well, get back up there. Hey, stop it. And I've got a cat next to me. That's why things are not always going the way they're supposed to here. My arm keeps getting bumped. I want to emphasize that the FBI's participation in this process was undertaken with my express direction to be as transparent as possible, while honoring our duty to protect sources and methods that, if disclosed, might make Americans less safe. Where protection of certain sensitive information is well-founded, I remain committed to upholding the laws and long-standing policies governing classification and public release. I am just as committed to the principle that possible embarrassment and chagrin to the FBI or its employees is not and should never be the basis of a decision not to divulge FBI information. The FBI has worked closely with the OIG and DOJ on the classification issues implicated by the report. Our joint process with the OIG and DOJ has ensured all material facts could be presented in this report, with redactions carefully limited and narrowly tailored to specific national security and operational concerns. And from what I saw of it, there's very few redactions. I am complete. I can't read. I am grateful for the mutual assistance of the OIG and DOJ in responsible presentation of this extremely sensitive information. Since becoming FBI director in August 2017, I have emphasized to FBI agents, analysts, and staff the importance of doing things the right way, by the book. I am humbled to serve alongside these dedicated men and women, and I am confident that the actions we are taking will strengthen our historic institution, ensure that we continue to discharge our responsibilities objectively and free from political bias, and better position us to protect the American people against threats while upholding the Constitution. And that is from Christopher Wray. And then down here is the link to the report. But there's, several links. So you'll have plenty of links out there. Everybody seems to be linking to it on Twitter, that's for sure. Okay, so that is from Christopher Wray's perspective. Now, let's go on, because at about the same time, John Durham decided, I need to make a report here. And so, again, these people have seen this report for a long time. It's not like they just were, suddenly presented with a 400 and some page document and they put out these statements. No, they've had these statements prepared. Everything was all set to go before it happened. So anyway, this is from John Durham. It's fairly short. I have the utmost respect for the mission of the Office of Inspector General and the comprehensive work that went into the report prepared by Mr. Horowitz and his staff. However, our investigation is not limited to developing information from within component parts of the Justice Department. Our investigation has included developing information from other persons and entities, both in the U.S. and outside of the U.S., based on the evidence collected to date. And while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to predication and how the FBI case was opened. So it's really unusual for John Durham, who is in the middle of an investigation, to actually make a comment about that investigation, because that's just not what they do. But he felt strongly enough about it, and notice that he says, last month is when he did this. So he knew about this for a while, so he could prepare the statement. And so he knows that it is not correct, it's not factual, because he has more information than Horowitz did. And of course, Horowitz was appointed by Obama. We have to remember that. So there is some leaning there, although I think for the most part he's a good guy and he's really trying to do what's right. But I don't think he wants to make things look too negative for the Department of Justice, and especially the FBI. And the same thing with Wray. I don't think Wray, this is his organization, and I don't think he wants to make it look any worse. Okay, so I think he's trying to kind of mitigate the problems, and according to him, all he did was refer to the document, the Horowitz report. So he doesn't have this extra information that Durham has here. Okay, and then of course we have to have one from, Barr. Barr had to put in his 2 cents worth because he also is not real happy with the results of it. Nothing is more important than the credibility and integrity of the FBI and the Department of Justice. That is why we must hold our investigators and prosecutors to the highest ethical and professional standards. The Inspector General's investigation has provided critical transparency and accountability, and his work is a credit to the Department of Justice. I would like to thank the Inspector General and his team. Now, again, he's just saying, they did a lot of work to put into this, and there are a lot of things that they're pointing out that needed to be addressed. So I'm not going to belittle that. That part of it is very accurate and factual, and that's what he is, giving out the respect for. But let's go on. The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. It is also clear that, from its inception, the evidence produced by the investigation was consistently exculpatory. Nevertheless, the investigation and surveillance was pushed forward for the duration of the campaign and deep into President Trump's administration. In the rush to obtain and maintain FISA surveillance of Trump campaign associates, FBI officials misled the FISA court, omitted critical exculpatory facts and their filings, and suppressed or ignored information negating the reliability of their principal source. The Inspector General found the explanations given for these actions unsatisfactory. While most of the misconduct identified by the Inspector General was committed in 2016 and 2017 by a small group of now former FBI officials, the malfeasance and misfeasance detailed in the Inspector General's report reflects a clear abuse of the FISA process. So yes, that is in this document, that it does outline all of that. However, it doesn't say this person needs to be arrested for this or this person needs to be prosecuted for that. Okay, it doesn't say that, but that's okay because that's what Durham's going to be doing. No one is more dismayed about the handling of these FISA applications than Director Wray. I have full confidence in Director Wray and his team at the FBI, as well as the thousands of dedicated line agents who work tirelessly to protect our country. I thank the Director for the comprehensive set of proposed reforms he is announcing today, and I look forward to working with him to implement those and any other appropriate measures. With respect to DOJ personnel discussed in the report, the Department will follow all appropriate processes and procedures, including as to any potential disciplinary action. So, very interesting that he put this out. It doesn't take a stance one way or the other, but I think if you have been following what Barr has been saying, he definitely is putting his weight into the Durham investigation. That's where everything is. And so here is the actual report. Let me go back up to the top. Yoo-hoo. There it is. Come on. You can do that. So it's 476 pages long. So if you go to it, it may take a little bit of time to upload depending on your connection. And since, I have squirrels running my connection here at home, that's what it is. But I will get to the library to upload this, so it should upload pretty fast tonight. Anyway, so this is the document here, redacted for public release. And it has this executive summary. Well, this executive summary is pretty long, but it goes through, and the big surprising thing that they're talking about on Twitter is there were 4 FISAs. Oh, gee, they should have been watching my videos, because I've been saying that for a long time. There were 4 FISAs, folks. There was a FISA on Manafort and Papadopoulos and Carter Page and Mike Flynn. There were 4 of them, folks. There were 4. So, yep, see, it says that right here in the first thing. And even Rush Limbaugh, one day I was listening to him, and he was all saying this was going to be so focused on just the Carter Page. And I'm like, no, I wanted to call in, but you know how it is calling into those people. You'd have to wait forever, and who knows if you'd even get on. But the whole point is, it was more than that. It was the Flynn one that is really huge. I mean, the others are big, but the Flynn one is key. That's going to be major. All right. And that was one reason why Judge Emmett Sullivan did not, didn't sentence Mike Flynn yet, because they were waiting for this to come out, and now it is verified. So what Sidney Powell has been saying is there's exculpatory evidence out there, because look, they did this. What was the predicate for that? What was the predicate for surveilling Mike Flynn with the FISA? There had to be something. And until that's looked into, they can't sentence Flynn. And when it all comes out that he's going to be exonerated totally. So no, I don't want Trump to give him I don't want Trump to give him a pardon. I want him to be totally exonerated and all charges dropped. So anyway, this executive summary is really long. I mean, it's several pages, but if you just read that, at least it's an overview of what's in the rest of it. And it does go on for a long time. I know you hate it when I do this, some of you. Well, I don't intend you to read it as we go, but I wanted to show you there are some places that are redacted, but very few. I mean, dates, I'm not real sure. I don't understand exactly why they had to redact the date on this. I don't know that. That's kind of strange. But it also mentions that each of the FISA renewals for the Carter Page one, that they were done by different FISA court judges. I think it said that. And I was kind of skimming. So, I mean, like I said, it goes on and on and on. So, yeah, the Carter Page one, that was a major thing that they focused on, but it's not all. And I think it's just very interesting to the public that all of a sudden they're like, oh, there were 4 of them. Yeah, there were 4. That's huge, although it's not surprising to me. I already knew that, right? Most of us already knew that. And there's some more that's been redacted. A lot of the stuff about Steele, who he was working for, has been redacted. And so I'm going down to, there's a big chunk that was redacted. And again, dates, I'm not sure. I just guess I can't understand why a specific date has to be redacted. What about it needs redacting? And, omitted Joseph Mifsud's denials to the FBI that he supplied Papadopoulos with the information. I mean, there's a lot of talk about what they omitted, what they failed to do, which is not surprising because Horowitz's whole job is to evaluate the procedures of the Department of Justice and to see if any of the employees have been violating procedures. And then there's a section on Bruce Orr, and, it goes on down here and talks about Nellie and, ethics issues raised by Nellie Orr's former employment with Fusion GPS and, FBI compliance with policies. So his focus is more on policies. He's not really looking for criminal behavior. That is not his, purview. That's what Durham is doing. So I'm going down to, yeah, there's more that's redacted. But really, all in all, those are not a lot of redactions. And I say that, and then the next page has a whole big bunch here. But and then the recommendations, that's interesting to look at, because in the recommendations you see what they're saying. These are things that need to be changed in how the FBI does things, which is what Christopher Wray was looking at, and that's what he was addressing with his letter. So those were the recommendations there. Anyway, then we get down to, yes, and this page was intentionally left blank. That always just seems odd to me, but I understand it, but it just always seems kind of weird. Yes, I'm intentionally leaving this blank. But the table of contents, as I've told you before in legal documents and things, it's really good to go through the table of contents, because that gives you a pretty decent overview of what the document's going to be about. So here is what we're talking about. Prior OIG reports on FISA and related issues, methodology, the structure of the report. This is kind of background stuff here. And then they get into it, applicable laws and department and FBI policies. So here's where they start to get into some of these things. Now, you'll have to remember that there's going to be a lot of alphabet soup in this. SIM, sensitive investigative matters, that'll be mentioned. The CHS we already talked about is confidential human sources. That's a big section there when they're talking about how to use those and how to vet them, essentially. And then we've talked in the past about Wood's procedures, and I never did get that video done I was going to do on Wood's procedures. But those are procedures that they have to follow. And essentially, since the FISA court is one-sided, it doesn't allow the accused to have any representation or have any say in it. Because of that, the FBI or whoever is trying to get that FISA warrant has to, provide any possible exculpatory evidence to the FISA court. Because, like I said, it's only one-sided, and it's only the prosecutorial side. So you don't get any of the defendant's point of view. So the Woods procedures basically is that if there is anything that is going to, maybe exonerate the defendant, that has to be included. And they violated that like crazy. They really did. And we see that even happening with Flynn. That's what Sidney Powell's been really upset about, because they won't provide the exculpatory evidence. And there is tons of it out there about General Flynn. Ethics regulations and, the examples of other department and FBI policies regulating investigative activity that could potentially impact civil liberties, undisclosed participation, investigative activities concerning members of the news media. That's interesting. White House and executive branch personnel and members of Congress. And so there is a section on that. Again, I haven't read this document yet. It just came out, folks. So I haven't had a chance to read it, but I have read through this, and these are some of the things that they addressed. And so I'm anxious to look into them and to see what's going on. It's about time. I think Tracy Bean said she was going to go through and read every line and every footnote, is what she said on Twitter. So, she'd be a good person to follow and to find out what's going on. I probably will read it all, but it's going to take me a long time. I read really slow. Plus, I'm working on my own books, folks. So, I'm doing more writing these days than reading at this point, other than these kinds of documents. So, these are different things. This is the FBI's receipt and evaluation of information from Christopher Steele prior to the first FISA application. And so it goes into Steele quite a bit. The first application for FISA authority on Carter Page, and, it deals with that too. So there are a lot of things that they will be addressing in this. And I think in some ways this is like laying the foundation. So when you wake people up, when people start to come to the realization of what's really going on, it's like incremental. And by the way, if you haven't seen my post yet, I did get a video uploaded on BitChute, and I'll have the link down below to my channel on BitChute. But I did do one on the 17th letter of the alphabet little interview that Jesse Waters did. So I mentioned some of the things on that, because with all this, this is all starting to come out. And some of the things that have to do with, this is all stuff that we knew. If you've been following the 17th letter of the alphabet, you knew this stuff was going to come out. And I think what they're talking about, the 17th letter of the alphabet always talked about building cases. And when you build a case, you've got to give a lot of foundational background, and then you can build from there. And I think this report right here is like the foundation. It's like the first step in waking people up. So people will say, oh, yeah, the FBI did do some wrong things. That's a first step, and it's major for some people. I mean, for those of us who really know what's going on, it's not that huge of a step. I mean, we've known it for a long time that the FBI did some bad stuff. But these people, people that are just watching the mainstream news, they don't know that. So they're going to have to wake up a little bit, and this is the first step in waking them up. So it goes on. And inaccurate, incomplete, or undocumented information in the first FISA application. So they do deal with that and present that. And FBI activities involving Christopher Steele after the first FISA, and FBI efforts to assess Steele's election reporting. So, there's a lot in this. The 3 renewal applications for continued FISA authority on Carter Page, because that has to do with stuff. And again, I just don't get the specific date. Why does the specific date have to be redacted? I mean, it just makes no sense to me. But I'm sure there's a reason somewhere along the line. And it could be, I had heard rumors, a long time ago when the Carter Page FISA warrant first came out, that Sessions had set up a trap with it, and that there were dates on it, that he had different dates depending on who got the report. And that way, when it was leaked, they could find out who exactly leaked it. So I don't know. That's possibly why they're being redacted, because this might be the real date of it, but it's contrary to the date that on some of them, or the ones that were redacted, or the ones that were leaked. So that could be it too. Anyway, so those misstatements, omissions, and errors in the FISA renewal applications. So there you've got that. And, you've got all these different sections that I think it's going to be interesting reading about. But the hope does not lie in this, and it never has. I mean, we've all known this, that it probably would come out like this. It's similar to the one that happened a year ago in June, because we're all like, oh yeah, it's going to be really devastating. Well, it is. If you read it, it actually is very condemnatory of the FBI and everybody. But because of how Horowitz views things, his goal is all about procedures and rules, and to see if the employees are following the rules. That's his job. He's not looking at it from a criminal perspective. So, anyway. All right. And then it goes into the Bruce Orr stuff. And so, yeah, this is just setting the stage, folks. Don't be discouraged because there's no reason to be. This gives some very, very upsetting things about the FBI, that to think that our FBI was doing all of this is pretty bad. And I think that as you get into it, these kinds of things right here, this abuse was really rampant. And this is just the beginning. This is not the end of the investigation. This is just the beginning. Keep that in mind. And anyway, so these are the conclusions, and always good to go to the conclusions. Then there's the appendix on Wood's procedures and the appendix to FBI response. And that's what we're talking about. Then it gets into it. So there you go. I wanted to give that to you. I'll put the links down below so you have all the information yourself. I also am going to put a link to this because I thought this was a very interesting thread. Now, this is not by Huber, okay? This is Undercover Huber, and it's a parody account, kind of. So he's not the real John Huber, okay? but he does put in some very interesting things and some good perspective. And he has a link here to the FISA report. And then he puts down some of his initial thoughts. And I thought they were very interesting to read. So I'll leave the link to that down below as well. Okay, so that's what I've got for you. I hope I've got time for this to render and for me to be able to upload it while I'm at my writers group tonight. So there you go. That's what I've got for you on this one. Sorry about all the mistakes, but that's how it works. So I'll talk to you all later. Thanks for stopping by.